views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Mission Bronx, a show dedicated to highlighting some of the wonderful work being done by nonprofit organizations in the Bronx. Mission Bronx is a collaboration between BronxNet Television and the Center for Bronx Nonprofits at Hostos Community College, and I'm your host, Eileen Newman. On this episode of Mission Bronx, we visit CitySquash, a program that combines squash, tutoring, mentoring, community service, travel, high school placement, college, career services, and more. We'll find out how they do it all. So, Terrence and Al, tell us how this all started. This is such an amazing idea.
So we're now in our 16th year. We were founded in 2002 by Sanford Schwartz, and at the time CitySquash was actually the fourth organization to be created that paired squash with academic mentoring. There were a few other organizations, one in Boston, one in Harlem, and one in Philadelphia, and we were the fourth such organization. We're all independently run and funded. And it's actually really amazing that now, 16 years later, there's now over 20 such organizations that are across the country. And so CitySquash was one of the first to get going, but we chose this neighborhood because, primarily because of its proximity to squash courts. That's usually a limiting factor in creating organizations like this. And so Fordham has some squash courts. They've been an incredible partner, Fordham University, since our founding in 2002 in terms of giving us access to those squash courts, giving us access to the classrooms, and that was like a really crucial part. And then of course, being in a neighborhood where that was more underserved, that had many families that were low income, as that's obviously the core demographic of folks that we work with. So that's kind of how it all got going. And I would say that initially we were really just kind of focused on, students would come, they'd spend half their time on the squash court. None of them had ever heard or let alone seen what squash was. And then they'd spend half the time in the classroom. We'd help them with their homework or whatnot. And so that's kind of what it was. And over the years, as the students have gotten older, our services have just grown kind of with our team members. And so we have things like a high school placement program now. We start younger. We start with elementary school students, not just middle school students. We have extensive services in terms of college placement, career services even, and in the summer we're really ramped up, really busy as well. So we kind of pride ourselves on being an inch wide and a mile deep, but we've kind of grown with the team members that have been part of CitySquash along the way, that's for sure.
So a student enters the program and they come in and do what exactly? What are the steps through their whole experience?
So basically every grade has its own kind of weekly schedule. On average, students are here 3 to 4 afternoons a week, and they're pretty much splitting their time between squash and academics. So for the squash portion, they're over at Fordham University, they're on our courts there. We obviously have full-time coaches who are walking them through practices in the afternoon. Sometimes we'll have matches for them, whether it's just kind of matches against each other. At the high school level, we'll have high schools come in, other high schools come in and actually play our team. Our high school team will compete in high school nationals in Philadelphia this year. And then on the academic side, we are kind of split between academics, which is basically our enrichment curriculum that is put together by our academic directors. And we will teach that to our students. That's meant really to expose students to new topics that they aren't necessarily learning about in school, but also working with them to strengthen, the core skills that they need, reading, writing, math, things like that. We also have academic sessions that are specifically meant towards helping students with their homework. So those are just homework help sessions. And for those sessions, we have volunteers, usually Fordham University students, who come into those sessions so that there's always at least 2 adults in the room going around to help the different students with their homework. And so all students in the program have that range within their weekly schedule.
So you also have a whole other piece of this that's fascinating to me, and that's the private school, boarding school piece. So how does that work?
So starting in the 7th grade, we will meet with all of our 7th grade students and their families and kind of walk them through the different options for high schools. Of course, there are public high schools here in the Bronx. There are Catholic schools, specialized high schools, that's all local within New York City. But then there are obviously private schools, and they're both private day schools in and around New York City and boarding schools. And we partner with a large number of private day schools and boarding schools and send roughly 40% of our students each year off to private high school or boarding school at the 9th grade level. So the process starts in 7th grade. We try to identify the students at that point who we think are best fit academically for our placement program. Obviously, the students have to also want to participate in the program. And then we start the long process of tutoring them, getting them academically ready both for the transition to a private school, because that is quite a jump coming from their public middle schools here. We also do a lot of test prep for the entrance exams that they need for those schools. And they'll apply 8th grade and hopefully go off in 9th grade. But we have, a support system in place so that we follow them all the way through. We have staff members that are dedicated really to following and tracking their progress at school. So we speak with their advisors, teachers, coaches, dorm parents, pretty much everyone that we can while they're away at school to make sure that they are doing well there, academically, socially, emotionally, everything.
But how does that work with the family?
Sure.
Because that's a huge transition for the family to have the kids leave.
Yeah. I mean, I would just to take a step back before diving into that. I think it's important to kind of recognize too, at the end of the day, the ultimate goal of CitySquash has always been to create or to enable students from this community to become college graduates. That's the most important goal that we've always had. And so there's obviously a lot of different paths one can take to get there. And so that's why things like our private high school placement program, it's not for everyone at that point in their life, but certainly for students that show the aptitude or interest in terms of just maximizing their probability of going off to college and excelling, having an opportunity like going away to a boarding school, it's like really life-changing. It puts them on a totally different track, and to your point, definitely. I mean, I think that families start out, they've never even heard of squash, let alone a lot of the other things that they do. Boarding school certainly is like a totally foreign idea, and almost all of our students are first-generation college students. So, while they might know what college is, they don't really have any first-hand experience. So, it's definitely it's a huge hurdle, and I think that at the end of the day, our relationship with our students and families is really over a long period of time. So, depending on when they start in 3rd grade or 6th grade, this is like a 11 or 14-year commitment. And so I think by the time students are in a position where they're potentially making a more significant transition to high school or living outside of the Bronx, there's a high degree of trust that's been developed. And I think that also another big part of the CitySquash experience is travel. Al alluded to it a little bit in terms of our students on weekends going away to play tournaments in different places or whatnot, and that happens very regularly. And so from a young age, not just on the weekends, in the summers as well, they're going away to camps and whatnot. And so from a young age, they're starting to become comfortable and exposed to not only being away from home, but being in these environments that are very different than what this Bronx neighborhood is like. And so I think that by and large, by the time these students get to a point where they are making a more permanent or significant transition, I like to think that they've been, from a social standpoint, they've become a little more comfortable with that idea at that point. Yeah.
And you stay with them through the college experience,
Correct.
right?
The same way that we follow them if they go away to a private high school, we follow them through college as well.
Some would probably prefer that we follow them a little less closely than we do, actually. Yeah.
Well, this is great, and thank you so much for letting us come and see all of this and hear all about it, because it's really an unusual model. So,
Yeah.
well, thank you again. This has been really great.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
We're taking a break, but don't go away. We'll be back to learn more about City Squash. So I'm here with Seth Canellis and Stacy Maceda, who have been in this program for a while. So, Seth, why don't we start with you? Because I feel like you are on the road to where Stacy is.
Yeah.
So how, well, first of all, where do you go to school now?
I go to Bronx Center for Science and Mathematics.
Okay. And how long have you been here?
I've been a part of CitySquash for about 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did you find out about it?
They had come to my school and they had gave us a presentation and told us to sign up, so I signed up.
So did you know anything about squash when they came to your school?
I had no idea what squash was.
So what made you say, sure, I'll go and I'll spend until 8 o'clock at night there? That sounds great. What made you do it?
I don't know, it just looked really interesting and I didn't really know what it was, and I thought it was going to be a really good experience, and it turned out to be a great experience.
So tell me how often you come here and how long you stay.
I'm basically here every day, Monday through Friday, doing homework for about maybe 2-3 hours, and then programming is maybe 5-4 hours.
So when you go to programming, you just play squash? Is there
We have certain days we have homework help, and other days we have college prep, which is basically like academics. We learn things such as STEM or other things, and then the rest of the time is for squash.
Okay. Stacy, how about you? How long have you been away from here?
Well, I've been part of the program for 9 years, so
Okay.
it's been a really long time. I started in 5th grade as just like a student at their summer camp, and this sort of evolved into my interest in joining the team, the being official on the team. And so I joined in 6th grade, and I tried out, and I've been in this program ever since.
So I'm going to ask you the same question. Did you know anything about squash?
I did a little bit. CitySquash sort of starts off in 3rd grade at PS 205, and so I had friends who have done squash and went to tournaments on the weekends, and they would just have a lot of stories about how they would go on to these tournaments and have sleepovers, and I thought that was so fun. And so when they offered the summer camp it was open to all students, I made the initiative, and I was just like, okay, so I'll go to the tryout, see what it is. And so I was able to learn about squash, fell in love with the sport over the summer, and then I decided to join in 6th grade.
Where do you think squash is going to be in your life?
I mean, I definitely see it being a huge part of my life. I mean, it's been part of my college career, so it's been a significant part of my experience at Hobart William Smith. But I definitely see it going more towards after, like, once I graduate. Like, I definitely see it being part of something I want to teach my kids someday, because it's just a new sport that I didn't realize existed until CitySquash introduced it to me.
So you feel that you're going to be really connected into this organization even after you're finished with school?
Right, yeah.
And what are you thinking about your future? I mean, I know that you can do lots of different jobs at lots of different times, but if you think about what you might want to do after school. You're closest.
Yeah. I mean, I think that being part of City Squash has actually inspired me to want to continue pursuing nonprofits in education because I saw the real effect that this organization had on not only me, but the students that are younger than me and students who are older than me. So I see myself definitely continue working in this sort of field work and even volunteering here during my breaks during college. I get to learn so much more about the organization and sort of learn the back end because I think that I've already experienced it being a student here, and so working here as a volunteer or working here during my breaks or summers, I get to see just the effort that the staff and the organization puts into like making sure that each student is being taken care of.
That's nice.
Yeah.
How about you, Seth? What are you thinking?
City Squash has sort of like brought me out of my shell and my comfort zone. So
You're sitting here
yeah.
on television. That's a big step.
So I'm sort of thinking of going into like real estate or like business. And I think CitySquash can provide me with all the opportunities I can get, recommending me to certain companies for internships. And as she said, coming here for my breaks and volunteering so I can not only learn as a student, but as a teacher, and maybe I'll go into the teacher field one day.
Oh, that's great. So he could be teaching, and his students will come to your nonprofit,
Right.
and you'll come to me, and I'll help you figure out how to keep the nonprofit going. So, thank you both so much, both of you. I know that you were busy here, and thanks for spending the time, and it's really been fun to talk to you. And good luck to both of you.
Yeah,
so,
thank you.
So I'll be talking to you when you're a teacher and you are running a nonprofit.
Right.
So thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
So, thank you both for sitting down with me and talking to me. So, what grades are you both in?
I'm in 8th. and
Okay.
We're both in 8. Yeah.
So, how long have you been in this program, both of you?
Since 3rd grade, we've both been, and we made it in the same year we tried out, and now we're in 8th grade. So it's been 5 years.
Okay. So, what made you try out?
I remember like in my class, 3rd grade, like they came in and just like started talking about the program. But then like on that day was my birthday. So like begging her to sign it for us, and then that's when she signed it. But like it was like basically like this video clip they showed us about the program and what it was about. So.
And how about you?
Around the same week that she also had tryouts, Terrence came into my classroom and he told us all about the program, and we were absolutely like in love with it. And well, not like entirely because we didn't know it, but now we are. And now it's just something like we don't know what we would be without it. And we tried out and it was hard, but we made it in the end.
So, do you have a lot of friends that you've made through this?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you see them outside of squash, or you hear so much, so it's
Yeah.
almost like you're hanging out here too.
It's like every day we're with them, because like in school and then like here after school and then in squash. So it's just like it's really like never like a time we're not with them.
So now that you've been in this for a while, now what's the hardest thing about squash?
I think it's the mental game, because sometimes we limit ourselves mentally, and once we do that, like we don't play in our full capacity, which is something most of us do. Yeah.
So you limit yourself because you think you're not going to be able to do it in that way?
Yeah, but we're trying to improve on that slowly, and it's hard, but we're trying.
Yeah.
I agree with the mental game, because it's just like what we like. Our mental game is like the biggest thing we need to improve on our squash game, you could say. 'Cause like that's what like motivates us to do better. But yeah.
But don't you think that's with a lot of sports?
Yeah.
I mean, I ran a
Yeah.
couple of marathons, and the hardest thing is to keep yourself from just saying, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to run any more miles. It's just to keep yourself going.
Yeah.
So it's great that you've been doing that. You've been doing it since you were really little kids, too. So do you see yourself continuing through this program?
Yeah. Yeah. I like want to go to college with this program, and I want to like make many like triumphs, because I want to make my family proud. And other than that, I want City Squash to be known through everything we do, and it's just something you represent, which is like why we are doing everything we're doing. I do see myself because like I wouldn't be without squash. I don't know, like that's like something big a part of me, and I don't know what I'll do without it. Yeah.
That's great, and I'm sure your families are so proud of you and so proud of that hard work, because that's a lot of work, coming in and staying as late as you'd stay and working your brain and working your body. So good for you, girls, and thank you so much for talking to us about this, and good luck to you.
Thank you.
So, Caleb, I heard this was a great weekend for you. What happened? You had a big win.
Oh yeah, so this week I played at the Greenwich Silver, and I've had like a tough 4 match, and thankful because it was really hard, but I won. So
That's great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's a big deal. And your schedule, I heard about your schedule. Your schedule is crazy.
Oh, yeah.
So you're commuting, right?
Yeah.
To school. Okay, so tell me about your days and how they...
So usually I'd wake up around like 5 o'clock, and so after I get up and finish everything, I take my dad drives me to the shuttle, which takes me all the way to school. But before I used to take the train and walk up, which was such a long process, but thankful for this out now.
So where's the school?
It's in Greenwich, Connecticut.
Okay, so it's where the tournament was.
Yeah.
So then you go to school until what time?
It goes until 3:30.
And what grade are you in?
8th grade.
And then you come back here?
Yeah.
And how long do you stay here until?
It depends, to be honest. Sometimes at the office, I might stay till like 8 o'clock till it's over. Or when the high schools will start practice, I usually practice with them.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So now you're going to be going into high school.
Yeah.
So are you going? Does that change? It changes the group that you're with for practice?
I guess, but not necessarily, yeah.
Okay. So how long have you been in the program?
Since 3rd grade.
When you were little.
Yeah, really little.
But it sounds like you're happy you did it.
I'm definitely happy I did it.
Yeah, that's great. And I was watching you. You do a great job. So keep it up. And,
Thank you so much.
And good luck to you. And thank you for talking to us.
Thank you so much.
Okay. So, Chris, I heard you have an amazing story, because you started here years ago. So tell me the whole journey of starting here and then going away to school, and how did this all begin?
Yes, so I started back in 6th grade, back in, I think it was 2004, if I'm not mistaken. One of my friends, Tim Wine, walked into the classroom and talked about tryouts, showed us a video. At the time, I actually didn't want to go into squash tryouts. I was playing basketball and baseball. One of my best friends at the time came home that Saturday morning, knocked on my door after we told him not to, woke my mom up, and he told my mom all about it. It was free, it was going to help us get into college and this and that, and surely enough, my mom woke me up. She was like, "You're going." So I was not too happy on the walk, but we came to tryouts, and I loved it because I was fairly good at it. The hand-eye coordination was there from baseball.
Right.
So I enjoyed right away, right from the first day, I enjoyed it because I felt like I was slightly better than most of the kids that were trying out with me, and it just felt like a fun, active sport, and all my friends were doing it at the time, so I was like, sure, like why not, you know?
Yeah.
So the trial process went on for a while. I ended up making the team, my best friend didn't. There was...
The friend who knocked on your door?
Yeah, my best friend at the time, yeah, that was tough, so...
Yeah.
So then once I was in the program, having to come to after school and not being with my friends who were playing basketball after school was kind of tough. And I even contemplated quitting at one time, but my parents didn't allow me to do that. And I'm very fortunate that they didn't. So yeah, and then after that, after 3 years in middle school, my grades weren't great, and Courtney, at the time, she was like, if you want to go to boarding school, you're good enough as a squash player, but academically you're far behind, so you need to get your grades up. So I spent the whole fall getting extra help, tutors, and doing the SSAT prep, and surely enough, my GPA went up every marking period my 8th grade year, and I got into boarding school.
Where?
Canterbury. I went to Canterbury School with, at the time, it was 3 other City Squashers, Freddie, Jose, and then we added Kingsley and Doris, his sister, and Raheem, who works for City Squash now. He was a street squasher. He was also at Canterbury. And we had a great 4 years there. We had a phenomenal squash team. I got to play baseball. I tried out a new sport. I was playing football there as well.
What made you want to go to boarding school?
So we actually had a team match, City Squash versus Suffield Academy. And that was the first time I ever had gone to a boarding school campus. And I loved it. It was awesome. The food was great. The campus was beautiful. The people were so nice. And all my friends, like Freddie, who was kind of an older brother of mine, not related, obviously, but I looked up to him. And he was doing the boarding school process. I was like, this is a great idea. You know, this is something good to get out of the neighborhood and try something different. So surely enough, I got my grades up and I applied and I got in. And I had a great 4 years. And then college came around and I was looking all over the place. I wanted to play baseball and squash. So it needed to be both. I couldn't just go to a school that only had one. So that was tough. I got into Denison, was my first choice. Financially, it didn't work out, and I was scrambling for college, and St. Lawrence came around. C-Tron and Elijah had just gotten in there. Applied through the HEAP program, an interview with Bill Short, who was a phenomenal guy, and I got in, and I loved it. Another great 4 years. The squash team, that experience was life-changing for me. Made a lot of good friends, worked extremely hard. We accomplished a lot of great things as a squash team. And then baseball also was a lot of fun there, and I had a great time socially. So it was so good that I somehow convinced my brother to go there as well, and that's where he is now, and he's having a great time. Yeah.
So then, how did you get back here?
So the nationals, college nationals, we had just lost to Trinity. I was devastated. Terrence was there, and we were talking. He was asking me about how the job process was going. By the time I had interviewed with Squash Busters and a couple other urban squash programs, as well as some other marketing 9-to-5 jobs. And Terrence put the idea in my head that there could be a job open at City Squash, and if it was something I was interested in. And I was like, well, if I'm going to work for an urban squash program, I would feel a lot better if I was going back home to where it all started. Surely enough, I applied, and it worked out. I interviewed, and it was exactly where I wanted to be.
And you're a director of the squash program,
yeah,
right?
One of the squash directors, yeah. It's
so
great.
How long have you been here?
So this is my 3rd year now. One of the big components as to where I came also was my coworker, Brian Patterson. This crazy old man who was a great soul. He was my coach as well when I was here for some years, and he was like, you should come here, it would be great. Like, working together would be a lot of fun, and the kids would enjoy having you around, and my brother was also in the program. So I had a lot of reasons why I wanted to come back home, and it worked out. I'm very fortunate that it did,
That's a great story.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for telling us that. That's fabulous. And obviously, I saw you with the kids. You're obviously into it. You can feel
I enjoy
it.
it. I enjoy it.
You can feel it. So thanks. It was great to meet you, and that was a terrific story.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Thanks.
Unfortunately, that's all the time we have. I want to thank all the students and staff of City Squash for being part of our show. And thanks to you, our viewer, for tuning in. If you missed any part of today's episode, or if you would like to check out past episodes of Mission Bronx, go to www.bronxnet.tv. And we'll be seeing you again on another episode of Mission Bronx.